Welcome to Faith Over Breakfast. You are listening to a podcast by Pastor Eric Deepen and Pastor Andy Littleton. If you enjoy Faith Over Breakfast, we encourage you to rate it on the Apple Podcast app, on Spotify, or Google Play. Thank you and enjoy the podcast.
All right, welcome to Faith Over Breakfast. My name is Andy Littleton. I'm sitting with my friend Eric Deepen.
I'm your friend. Yay! I've upgraded.
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Wow. Well, I'm from Mission Church. Eric's from the Village, and we are friends.
We are friends.
And we sit down for a breakfast table conversation about once a week, and we talk about faith. We don't plan, and you're invited.
Yep.
And we hope it's helpful. We hope you know it's not dogma.
Yeah.
It's us thinking things through.
Yeah.
So today we purported to be talking about loan forgiveness. There was some mention of that. We talked about capitalism. We talked about giving to the church, specifically giving to your leaders through the church. What else? There was more.
We talked about mission,
bivocationalism.
Yeah. Things that people just think about a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure I know if you're listening to this and you went,
woohoo,
those things, or that's what I've been thinking about. Well, then look at that. We made this podcast just for you. If not, maybe you'll start thinking about it.
Yeah. Hey, so here's my major pitch before we jump off this podcast and you get to listen to us talk. Rate us.
Yeah.
I think we have 22 ratings.
Oh,
we need more ratings. It gets our voice out. We don't need it, but we would love if you would say, "Hey, I love them. 5 stars." That'll get us bumped up. And if you think that Faith Over Breakfast is something that more people should listen to, you can actually participate by rating us.
Well, and in the spirit of where we're going in this podcast, you'll have to listen. I just want to tell you, if you really love Eric Deepen, and you care about him and his family and the investment they give to you, then get your checkbooks out. Write a check right now to Eric Deepen or Faith Over Breakfast podcast, which you can't write a check to that because there's no account for it.
I guess we could do it as a...
But support the work.
The Village Church.
This is incredible stuff. Your money is sitting in a bank account gaining interest for no good reason. Put it in our pockets. We will talk more and use it for the glory of God, and you will be blessed.
Amen. Hey, Andy.
What's up, man?
I don't know. We're here podcasting.
Yeah, that's right. Is that a super mom mug you have there? We have this conversation about women in leadership. I just noticed last time, and now you got a super mom mug.
Yep, super mom.
Okay.
Yeah. We're not even talking about it.
It's almost as weird as me having an IHOP cup of coffee, which I do.
That is weird.
It is weird.
I mean, not even weird. It's almost sacrilegious.
Yeah. It's wrong. It's going against my values.
There's a story behind this.
There is.
Did someone give you a free cup of coffee?
No.
Oh my goodness. You paid for this cup of coffee?
I had a meeting before this with our buddy Thomas, and we were supposed to meet at Alice's because it was very close to here.
Yes.
And then Alice's had their occasional paper sign on the door that said, actually, we're not open. And so we had to make a quick pivot, and it was IHOP.
IHOP it was.
And I haven't been to IHOP in the memorable past. I cannot remember the last time. I know I've been there before. Can't remember when. Maybe when I was 5.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that Pocha's Grill or whatever's coming up right across from...
Coach's Grill?
Pocha's.
Pocha's?
I think that's what it is. When you're pulling out of Cloverland, straight ahead, there used to be Carmelo King's Tacos. Now they're redoing it. They redid the parking lot. They paved the whole back area.
Whoa.
They're bringing in maybe a serious Mexican grill, so maybe they'll have breakfast there.
That'd be all right.
Get them to sponsor us.
Let's go.
We'll talk about them every week.
Okay, I'm down. I'm not ready to talk about IHOP every week.
No.
Even though I'm sure I'm talking about
it
right
IHOP
now.
Could write a check, I'd talk about IHOP.
Yes. Oh, okay. Well, which really leads well into capitalism. As a driver for everything. Because IHOP symbolizes capitalism, and our desire for money does too, I guess. Money for our podcast.
For our podcast.
So there's all the talk about loan forgiveness
Cash App.
and such. Cash App. Money.
Give it to us.
Yeah, if you want to support our capitalist greed, send it on over. So you've come with a quote.
Well, I came with the quote, but I think it's got to be a quote that's prefaced.
Preface it.
I texted
Tell
you,
us about the
and I
quoter.
said, "Hey, you want to do part 2?" And you said,
of the women in ministry.
Yes.
Here's, and I do need to say, as much as I don't love just. I feel like that's a delicate subject that needs...
Yeah, you have a little bit of angst to it.
Sure. There's a number of reasons. I mean, one of which is that
you don't want to be burned at the stake.
Sure, on either side of this, and by women on either side of it, to be honest.
Sure.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
So, but also your youth pastor sent us in some questions that have to do with interpretations of specific texts.
When I was a youth.
My former youth pastor.
Yes.
Yeah, you still have one. You probably should. I wish I had a youth pastor.
We'll never have a youth pastor.
That's right. No, I know. I mean, just for you.
Oh, I need one, yes.
Yeah.
Not that I don't like youth pastors. It's just doesn't fit our model.
Right. Same. At least at this point. But specific questions about texts that I feel I really need to look into them slightly before talking about it. I still haven't done it.
We may have a pastor, by the way, who focuses on youth, but he would not only do that.
Thanks for clarifying.
I want to be clear because that's important.
John at our church leads the youth small group.
Yeah. That's not. It's just sometimes the poor youth pastor. He's like is he really a pastor? Is he not a pastor?
Oh, we could have that discussion.
Yeah, he gets shoved.
Should we just pivot this whole thing and talk about youth pastors?
Let's do it. I don't know, poor youth pastors. I don't know if you and I are even capable. Let me just summarize.
I was a youth pastor. Were you?
You were. I have never been. I've been a college minister.
I was a director of middle school ministries.
Yeah. And you know what? So they, when I was at El Camino, they were like, so the pastor left who was running both the college and singles ministry.
Okay.
And they said to me, well, we can't pay you, but we can give you an $18,000 budget. So do whatever you want with it. I was like, okay. So I was, and then they were like, and we're not giving you a title. So I didn't really get a title. I just had a budget and ran a ministry.
Did it.
Yeah.
You did it. And I would have done it.
Yeah.
I would have done that too, which is crazy. But in a way, I think it's kind of a good sign. If you're willing to do ministry without getting paid for it, you're probably the type of person somebody should pay for it.
Yeah.
But
so I'm just going to summarize this. Maybe we'll go back to youth pastors.
Just read it.
It's just the way he writes. Okay, here we go. And this is all in caps, by the way.
Oh.
Until we get to the need to grow, okay?
Tell us about David Fitch.
Okay, David Fitch is one of my, I'd say he's probably my top 5 favorite theologians.
Oh, okay.
He is a neo-Anabaptist.
A neo-Anabaptist.
His specialty is missional theology.
Yes.
He's at Northern Seminary, so it's a pretty broad seminary. There are Christian Reformed people there. There's neo-Anabaptists. There are.
Can you tell us what a neo-Anabaptist is?
Oh boy, I don't think Dave Fitch can tell you what a neo-Anabaptist is.
Yeah, just try.
But okay, I'm going to give you the simple version. If you Mennonite, think of a Mennonite.
I can't.
Okay, so
I'm trying to get you to talk to people in our churches who. I know what a Mennonite is, Eric.
Okay, I'm not gonna explain it.
What's an Anabaptist?
Here's it's in the name.
Is it a woman named Anna who's a Baptist?
Yeah, we're gonna leave it at that. There's a couple things that I think highlight Anabaptists, right? They are pacifists, so they tend to be anti-war people. Anabaptists also, they came out of, they were persecuted during the. Goodness, now you're going to hit me in my church history. When did the Anabaptist persecution start happening? Probably post-Reformation. Yeah. So So I know that the Baptists started by the Anabaptists baptizing some Reformed people, and then that's how the Baptist movement started.
And often re-baptizing people who are baptized as infants.
Infants. They're against infant baptism, tend to be anti-war, tend to
more
be congregational in their rule.
Meaning that there is not a broader oversight structure, but that all governance happens at the local level.
Yeah, but generally, I think the conference, quote unquote, that he belongs to does have a collection of leaders. Right?
Almost all congregational churches I know now have a broader structure they submit to. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily well versed in all of the Anabaptist ways of being, and I don't think Dave Fitch is a classic Anabaptist.
Here's an idea for the future: is we should have a guest that we have on named Anna the Baptist.
And we'll call it Anabaptist, and
she can explain all things Anabaptist from time to time.
And I did not know you were going to hit me with what are the Anabaptists, and I'm not up on my Anabaptists. I feel like I'm in my ordination exam, and they throw you a curveball, and they're like, hey, please lay out the belief systems of the Anabaptists. And you're, wait, I'm trying to be ordained in the Christian Reformed Church. Everything opposite of the Christian Reformed Church.
Yeah.
That would be an Anabaptist.
There you go. Okay.
I
still like them. I like them.
Right. Well, you know. They're, gosh. Well, we don't have time to talk about these things.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I'll give you a book report on the Anabaptists next week.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll give you
just to show solidarity. I think the pastor in Phoenix that I keep finding that I relate to, like he and I are kind of, we have a lot of similarities. He's an Anabaptist.
There you go. Maybe he could tell us what exactly.
Oh, he could. I'm sure.
Distinct.
He could.
So I have a question. We'll just do this live on air.
Great.
So you know the neighborhood church?
Yes.
Is there more than one neighborhood church out there?
I'm not sure.
And is the neighborhood church the one that meets in Desert Christian?
They did, at least at some point.
Okay. So I didn't realize this, but the neighborhood church used to be Crossroads. Crossroads used to be Mark Bryan's church. Mark Bryan's was the one who married me and mentored me and left El Camino Baptist to go plant. That I didn't.
And it all turned into
the neighborhood church. I had no idea.
And me either.
Wow.
And I have heard of others that went on that journey, and for who it was a very pivotal journey. For me, I never even heard of these people.
Are the neighborhood people Anabaptists?
Oh,
are all people Anabaptists? All right, let's just read this statement. All right, capitalism drives our educational institutions. Capitalism drives the disdain for loan forgiveness. The need to grow, compete, provide first-class luxury dorms and food, first-class job opportunities, etc., led to massive tuition increases, while professor pay has stayed relatively low at U.S. educational institutions. Its hollow ethic of competition and all that entails also drives the ones who disdained forgiving school loans. Having said that, loan forgiveness really won't address the capitalist takeover of U.S. educational institutions. Dave Fitch.
All right, so Dave Fitch is essentially saying, okay, I hear the arguments going on about loan forgiveness, but here's the deal. All of you on both sides of this have been utterly slaves to capitalism.
Yeah, basically, we're slaves to capitalism.
And so the argument for and against it is all just capitalism.
Capitalism.
It's two capitalists that look exactly the same fighting with each other.
Yes.
That's what he's saying.
That's what it is. And do you agree with that?
Yeah, by and large, usually when I see I see us as an American society fighting with each other, it usually feels like two people with the same deeper ideal fighting over secondary issues, coming from the same place, whether that is individual rights or whether that is capitalism. It's two devoted capitalists or two devoted individualists fighting over how that's going to work out and who it's going to benefit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, we had this conversation at our dinner table. I posed the question, okay, so talk to me about this loan forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I have 3 college students in my house at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, one of them went back up to NAU.
And they said?
And they were all for it. They don't I don't think, well, two of them don't have college loans. I think their thought is that things have gotten out of control.
Yeah.
And there's lots of people, particularly teachers, who end up with large loans.
Yeah. Oh, shoot.
So that was
pastors.
Pastors who don't have the income stream to really pay that off. On the other hand, there were some thoughts of like, well, but you chose this. You didn't have to. There are actual other options.
Right.
You didn't have to take out the loans. But maybe you wanted the fancy dorm or you wanted the college experience. So that's part of it. There was also, at least my initial thought was, I also asked, what do you think about the argument that's being put forth that, you know, people who don't go to college, but who have worked hard like a tradesman, so they're, you know, middle class, and so they're being taxed, so they're going to be helping pay off these student loans. Is that something that we want to be doing? Does that make sense?
Right.
I mean, I think the argument at our dinner table...
that would be me.
Yeah. At the dinner table was really, well, but our taxes pay off a lot of things, right, that people choose to do. So this is just another one in the lump.
Drop in the bucket that was the word used over breakfast for me this morning in regard to this.
Yep, drop in the bucket.
Yeah, considering where our tax money goes. This is a blip.
For me, a lot of this just feels out of control. Like I don't, pay the loans off, don't pay the loans off. I'll have friends, hopefully, who'll benefit from it. And that's the way it is. And I have to adjust to the way the tax system works and the economy is moving. And I obviously want to vote. But even, you know, I think the frustration that you hear in that quote from Dave Fitch is capitalism drives either side, right? Making money. You know, I used to hear the joke, the difference between a Republican and a Democrat is the Republican pulls his limo up to the front, the Democrat pulls his limo in the back and walks around. They're the same person.
Sure.
They just try to appear different.
Oh, absolutely.
One is sort of proud of his wealth, the other is a little more humble about it, maybe, or just doesn't want it to be seen as wealthy. Well,
yeah, or you buy the $80,000 Tesla as, you know, this is just how it works out. Or, I mean, so we can look at, I was thinking about this the other day. I pull up next to the giant diesel truck that costs $60,000.
Yes.
And I look up at and in my own mind and heart, I go, okay, like, do you really need that thing? Like, come on, you know, that's a lot of money. And then I pull up next to the Tesla and I go like, oh, cool Tesla, good for the environment.
Not really, but yeah.
But truthfully, yeah, the lithium battery thing is an issue, and even like the bicycling people are saying producing electric cars is not really the solution, and that Tesla costs more than that big truck.
Right.
So the two sides are usually doing about the same things, and they're usually spending exorbitant amounts of money. I mean, I was talking to somebody who's kind of in the green energy field, and he was talking about how he upgraded his system and he just made it way bigger. And he was like, I didn't really need to. I just wanted to. I just wanted to have the bigger system. And you go, this was solar.
Oh, for solar, right.
But which, and I think solar makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
but
solar.
I have it on my house. But at the same time, just the like, I just upgraded it because I just wanted to.
Right.
And we're spending a lot of money pumping it into companies, believing in capitalism.
Yeah, no, I mean, it certainly is an idolatrous thing, capitalism.
So I agree with Fitch, and I think this is true of many other issues, that we who are screaming at each other are the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you think there are people in our churches, let's just try to talk to our churches,
to the many people who listen to our widely listened to podcast.
That's right. No longer probably in Japan. I don't know. I don't watch these things. You would know.
I haven't looked at to see where we're at.
Japan still tuning in?
Probably a little bit.
Okay.
Cleveland, Tennessee, and Cleveland, Ohio, both because both Clevelands.
Wow.
One are my cousins and one are my in-laws.
Okay.
They're loyal listeners.
That helps.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of loyal listeners to this.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it. So you're so happy right now. I just want to point that out. Just saying that. I'm not even joking. Like the look on your face, there are so many loyal listeners. I was like,
oh, happy.
Eric's super happy in this moment, just thinking about this.
Happy.
So do the people listening to us, do you get the sense that they see themselves in the people that they disdain or are frustrated by? Like, are we are our communities able to see that?
I think at some level, sure.
Yeah.
I think at other levels, no.
Sure.
I mean, sometimes it's just so hard when you feel, in general, wherever you stand in something, you don't understand someone's logical leap, right? And so you're trying to make sense of the decisions that are so counter to the ones that you think are right or think are the way they're supposed to be. And so it doesn't make sense to you, and so that's really hard to then see yourself in them.
Yeah. Here's another way of framing sort of that question. Is it possible for someone who swims in the ocean of capitalism to claim or to have an experience of being outside of it? Like, are we, like the Little Mermaid, we can only live because of our upbringing, and can we really be on land? Could we get outside of it? Do we even know what that looks like?
Well, and I think, and maybe I'm not necessarily well versed in economic theory, but I'm going to venture this guess.
I'm absolutely not. I'm just going to go ahead and say that.
Everything that we do is connected to capitalism. It doesn't matter what government you have, because everywhere there's something of value that is being exchanged for something for value. Now, there may be power structures and all that kind of stuff, but even when you live in socialist and communist governments, there's an underlying black market where there's an exchange and a value. And that is just a form of capitalism, right? I think you pay something or you give something valuable and you get something. That's how this works.
And I would assume I am a capitalist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that said,
you're a small business owner.
I am.
Yeah. So you're on some kind of board
for businesses.
Businesses. You're like
I'm the epitome of the capitalist
in the Tucson area of capitalism. Duke Andy.
I'm a capital Duke.
Yes. Anyway, go continue.
Yeah, no, shoot, I am. Yeah. You had to take it all that far, but you're right. So I can't really get on a high horse against capitalism, but there's maybe, and I assume Fitch is a capitalist. I mean, the guy.
Oh yeah. He loves hockey. He loves going to games.
I don't know anything about
buying stuff.
Yeah, you can't really do all that and say you're not a capitalist at all.
Agreed.
But maybe he's saying this is capitalism gone crazy or too far. What do you think?
I think, obviously everyone's a capitalist, but I think he believes, and I think this is probably, again, I'm speaking out of some ignorance, that his Anabaptist theology is that the kingdom of God, which isn't driven by capitalism, right? You give away things not expecting return, is supposed to invade all these spaces and shake them up and be a counter to them and really kind of aggravate them and irritate them towards something that's better. And so I think he's always trying to do that, and he continually calls the church in all areas to do that.
So let's imagine, let's just have an imagination session here.
Imagination.
So what would that look like when it comes to education?
Right. Well, I think education. So just so we can be clear, when I went to college, this is at ASU.
Mm-hmm. You're one of them.
1993. My semester tuition was $990.
Yeah.
My books cost me about $150.
Yeah.
Right. And as a college student, I was able to get a Pell Grant for $1,100.
Yeah.
It cost about $2,500 a year to go to ASU.
Yeah.
I could work part-time and pay rent in Phoenix and all the bills that I need. I could do it. I could have done it. I mean, I had a couple advantages, but
my mother, generations before, but she just worked a job and paid for her school along the way.
And I could have done it.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that now. I don't think at the U of A, I think the yearly tuition is somewhere around $10,000, $10,000 to $12,000. And I don't think as a college student you can go and live in an apartment, pay for food, pay for insurance and all that kind of stuff, and pay for college.
Be super hard.
Yeah. I think it's changed, and I think that so yes, I think what he's trying to argue is that we've tried, because colleges are competing with each other, and by the way, my wife's in admissions, so I know all about how much they compete.
Yeah, so they're all they're providing more perks and the best this and that, and to do that everything goes up, and the teacher salaries he's saying are not.
They aren't. They've stayed relatively the same.
They're not. They're not going up to the same degree at all. Right. So we don't value the actual learning. Right.
I think
we value something else.
The experience, and so we're competing, and the more you compete, if Faith Over Breakfast is competing with, Faith Over Dinner, then there's all of a sudden, what is being said there is better at Faith Over Dinner, being they're working on giving, they got a better engineer than me, and they've got cool graphics, and so you want to listen to them and not us.
And isn't this quite true of churches also? Competing.
Why would someone want to go to your church when they can come sit in couches at my church? I mean, just there, like
your couches are stinky.
But then your chairs are uncomfortable. I mean, it's like we go back and forth, right? You know what I mean? Like this is the thing. Yeah. Like we compete.
Yeah,
it can be turned into that.
No, for sure.
Because what? What are we competing for? In a sense, are we competing for prestige? Are we competing for $1? Like, are we competing for givers? I mean, that becomes.
It's so tough, because speaking of givers, I struggle with asking our people to give. I do.
All right, let's change the subject here and talk about giving. Why do you struggle?
Yeah, talk to me.
I want to hear about that. Tell me why you struggle to ask people to give.
Yeah, so because I grew up Pentecostal. And a certain brand of it.
A wealth, health kind of prosperity gospel?
Well, in my experience, I didn't grow up in a church that leaned too heavily into that, but you became more exposed to that by being in those circles, watching that kind of stuff on television as well. Sense. It became more accessible to you, where Michaela didn't grow up watching these TV shows ever. I did, even though my church didn't push it to the same degree.
But we heard that Joyce Myers, you listened to her, and she was one of your pastors.
Oh, sure. And it did seep into the churches, I think, to a certain degree.
Yeah, I would agree.
So
okay, but
it wasn't just there. It wasn't just there. But I'm saying that there's a
and I hear it. I hear you. But I would argue that maybe it's not just that.
I don't think it is.
So let's talk about really why you don't want to ask.
Why don't you tell me why?
No, I want to hear it.
Because know.
No. I want to hear why you really think it.
Well, yeah, and then even deeper down. So then my counter thing is, currently there are things I really want to see our church be a part of.
Yes.
Like deeply want to. I think it matters. I think it's good stuff I want to see. And it's not... It really doesn't have to do with it, getting into my pocket. It really, in fact, I foresee not getting a lot more and having more to do. So it doesn't necessarily, tie to that. And so I want our people to grasp that and fund it and give to it in several ways. I mean, I'll give one example right now. Here's my little pitch. So Cruz, our young guy who's doing an internship for Peanuts at the moment, is gathering,
literally, by the way, yes, Andy sends peanuts home with
I send him peanuts shelled. He has to shell them himself. And
you've left capitalism behind. You pay in peanuts. Okay,
it's a barter economy.
To connect these two things.
He's probably allergic to peanuts. He just has to throw them away when he gets home and just cries. But he's trying to gather friends he just wants to have a gathering of people, not because they're believers, but he wants there to be a deeper spiritual conversation. More of them are wanting to come than he expected, and he wants to treat them well and buy them food, and he's like willing to pay for it. And anyway, this is just, and nobody sign up for it, please, because he can't handle one more person. Like people, it was a sweet thing to hear about. He cares, and he's gathering these people, and I'm going, I want us to pay for that. I want our community to buy the food. That's one of like 20 different things. So I want us to give to make that happen, because he's going to scrape the bottom of the barrel and get it done no matter what.
Yeah. Well, that's part of being a missionary, by the way.
I know.
And that's good.
I know. Yeah. And so then it's like,
in the beginning anyway, it's good.
Yeah.
When you're young and single.
So I have this tension where I want to rally for that and about 10 other things.
Okay.
And at the same time, I've got this background
so
to where the rally feels I'm scared of doing the rally.
Can I offer you something?
Please.
So I used to be like you, and I really admire that about you. And it's not that I am not there, but I was part of a pastor's group a long, long time ago. And one of the guys who was in that group has an pastor of a very, very large church.
Yeah.
And who I, at the time, though he kind of drifted more into the emerging world, at the time I really admired him and respected his opinion. And one time in our meeting, as I'm just talking about stuff, he looked at me and he said, Eric, before you do anything, if your church does not pay you and take care of you well, they don't care about you. And you need to get that through your head, because those mission things don't matter if they can't care about you, because what they need to learn to care for the one who takes care of them spiritually. That's part of discipleship of the church.
Sure.
That was mind-blowing for me, because it's awkward, because part of it, what you have to do is teach your community to take care of their pastor.
Sure.
You.
Which is a weird thing to do.
It is, right? And so I think...
And I do agree with you, and I want to add a layer to that, if I'm being honest, too. Even with the outreach and stuff, that is a way of caring for me, because no. Let me give you my thoughts on this.
And I'm going to push back.
Go ahead. But they are things I want us to do.
Oh, sure.
They're things that I see and I believe in. So when I say it's I see it. It's investing in a vision I am bringing.
Oh, I agree.
And so I'm excited, but there's a deep insecurity in me in getting people, asking people to invest in something that is so personal.
Right, I agree. Yeah. But I think you wouldn't have that if they were just super excited to pay you and super excited and upset that you weren't being paid more. You would definitely, then you would have people who were like, yeah, let's figure out how to take care of you. Let's figure out how to take care of this mission. Let's do this. We want to financially make all of this happen.
Okay, so now that you're insulting the people in my church and telling me
I'm not insulting anybody. I'm just saying, hey, if your church is listening, maybe you should make sure your pastors are paid really well.
No, for sure. And
that's all.
No, thank you. And
I think at the Village, it's still a work in progress.
Yeah.
Right? And people.
Yeah, because I could give the same talk back. I think both of our churches are trying to do things that are different. There is a side where we're engaging people who are new in faith or maybe not in the faith at all.
Sure.
And there's always so you take a church of our visible size.
Right.
I was looking around Sunday. We had a vibrant day. We had a good group, but I'm also going, man, the idea of giving to the church is foreign to a lot of faces in this room.
Right.
And I like that they're here. I don't want to be disappointed that they're not doing that yet or whatever. I'm just that's part of the evidence that God's at work, is that we have people in here who aren't doing that yet.
Yeah. I would argue, though, if you're not explaining at least in 4 or 5 sentences about giving every week.
Yeah, then I struggle with.
I mean, and one of the things that, if it fits into your liturgy of if you really see this as valuable, it costs money.
Right.
I have to pay rent and or mortgage on my house. I have to help my children go to college, right? The roof has to be, right, not leaking on you while you're singing. Like all this costs money. And if you want that, then God invites you to give joyfully to it.
Right.
And I think that's I think, and also giving your people freedom to be concerned about you and about how things are going.
Yeah.
Like to know your finances. I mean, your church should know exactly how much you make.
And they do, well, it's posted.
Yeah.
They know how much I make from the church.
50 cents?
No.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you make. So I need to go look at it. It's posted, right?
It's posted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you go check it out.
No, I mean, giving's a hard thing to talk about. I get it. I have a hard time talking about it.
Yeah.
That's why we stuck it into our liturgy, so we are forced to say it every week.
Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah, and I'm supposed to say it every week, and it gets forgotten often, or it's very brief, and we've talked about this, but we need to do it. And it's just, it's tough. Like I definitely feel a little angst about doing it. And I know I need to figure out the way to do it right and get over it.
Sure. And, I mean, at our church, I mean, I agree there's a couple different methods that you can go about. Like in our church, our church's size is about 150 people, kids and adults. And in a regular church, that's one pastor, probably an administrative assistant part-time, and a part-time youth pastor.
Right.
And we as a church could afford to pay a quote-unquote, to go back to capitalism, a competitive rate for all three of those people in those particular jobs.
Right.
But because we've chosen to have a more discipleship-oriented way of being, we've tried to choose different income streams.
Yep.
So it makes it more difficult to provide like what a whole institution would provide.
And that's the bivocational thing for us. In a way, I really like a couple things about our bivocational approach, and that is, number one, I actually love how it puts me in the community.
Yes,
that is extremely valuable. And if you're not sort of making some income in the community, it's harder to just go be an actual participant over in that space.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Number two is it allows our team to be far more diverse because we can focus on what we're really good at. So if I made the full-time salary and I needed to put in, 40 to 60 hours or whatever pastors tend to do.
But you already put in 40 hours in pastoring. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I can. There are weeks, but there are weeks where I don't because I'm doing other things.
Right.
But what I'm getting at is by saying I focus on the areas where I'm strong, and then I have this other role, and John does, and Mike does, and Karen does, and Cruz does, and Steve does.
Sure.
We have a more diverse team with the funding that we have because we each play our little role.
So what would you say the downfall of that is then?
So the downfall is that I still think that we need more money to do what we feel called to do, and maybe we don't give that because of the bivocationalism. People feel like, oh, they're fine, they have this other job.
Right.
Yeah. And they're fine, and the church is fine because we don't need to give more to it because they, in a way, it would almost be like because the people have enough, they're doing fine. There really isn't a sense like why would I give to that?
Yeah.
And
I also think I
think I need to cast a better vision.
Bivocational is very difficult in families.
Yeah.
Especially young families. So as your pastors head into like having babies and that kind of bivocational is a real, very difficult.
Well, and as I've spent a little time in my book on bivocationalism, there just isn't a format. You can't say, oh, I know what it's like to be bivocational, because every version of it's completely different. In my particular case, I'm technically trivocational, but the business that I own, I have a very like limited role. I have a specific role I play in it, and because I'm a co-owner of it, I get to define that role. And on a week I can be like, I'm not going to be there, and I don't have to be.
Right.
You know, it is very malleable to my situation, and I've always had that.
Right.
Even when there was a period where it got harder, but then my third vocation, which is the mission agency, is actually like taking a part of my ministry that where I like to network and connect other people, and it's in a sense covering something I already
and I think as an entrepreneur, bivocational is great.
Yeah.
If you're a nurse, and that's your one skill, and you're also a pastor, then it's harder.
It is. Yeah. So this is
I've done the bivocational thing.
Yeah.
And it's hard with kids, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's just hard.
Well, and I was going to come back to that. If you're you're at the church and you work for a corporation in sales, you don't get to tell them your schedule. They tell you.
Right.
And if you get called in, you get called in, and your church and family have to adjust. And that is far more difficult than my particular version right now.
So, and I think the entrepreneurial thing, those people have a very apostolic gifting. I really, really struggle with non-apostolic people being bivocational.
No, I
don't think it's biblical. Actually, I have a really hard time with it. Mm-hmm. I think that those people who serve you spiritually are worth double honor, and that's talking about finances.
Yeah,
and that means they should actually be paid twice as much as everyone else,
right,
for what they do. And that's not true. That doesn't happen, which is fine. But
in a capitalist society, what does that even?
What does that mean? But what is being proved there is, look, you need to take care of the people who spiritually take care of you, because this is an eternity kind of thing they're living in, and they're called to serve you, and that means that their family goes under a different kind of stress than you are in,
right.
And they're also most likely that whole family's going to serve you in some way. Right, it's not just them individually a lot of the time.
Right.
So, I think people like you, it works because you're an entrepreneur. You have an apostolic gifting.
Right.
And so,
in a way, and I think Nick, our former fellow pastor, who's part of the table now, he even maybe more than me, like, kind of was nervous about the lockdown that would come in being paid more hours, and the expectation, like the freedom was helpful. And I feel some of that too, like being bivocational also.
Sure.
It doesn't feel like I'm like locked into a room.
It gives you a little bit more control over what you do.
Like I've watched pastors in, full-time situations who just have to show up in this office, and it's like, oh my gosh, like that sounds awful.
Right. Well, I mean, and I think the traditional model of having office hours and all that,
there's something also goofy there.
Not a good idea either. I mean, I think the pastor should be mobile. The pastor should have, in the context of whatever team he's in, have a lot of say over how he's going to function and what he's going to do.
Well, it's just understanding that pastors aren't all the same.
No, they aren't.
And so you've had one before, and this new one's different.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. So anyway, it's capitalism. So,
wow.
So I want money at our church to do things, and I want us to be taken care of. I absolutely do. I want people to care deeply about myself, my family, our other leaders and their families, and the mission we feel called to do.
Yes.
And I want them to help fund it. But the nerves come in for me because I'm like, I don't want to be I don't want to be another money grab.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing you struggle with, and I heard this from another pastor.
Tell me.
I think it's so true. I mean, I struggle with it. So people like us who are visionaries and who drive mission, okay, we care about our thing. Our elders, those leading alongside, maybe care 75% of it as we do. So they're like 25% reduced. Then the leaders under them care about 50%. And your congregation cares about 25% of your mission. So you're trying to, like, in the sense of like being all in and all your energy, because this is your thing.
Right.
And you're calling and you're inviting people to it.
Yeah.
Other people have all these other things. And so trying to help them come together and to be able to be okay that things don't move as fast, or they don't understand, or they don't want to be part of all the cool things that you want them to be part of, is a huge adjustment, I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the longing, I remember even when we planted, it dawned on me one day. I think I was sitting at Brugger's, and it just hit me that
I used to be a Brugger's guy.
Yeah, you're a Brugger.
I haven't been in a while.
I haven't either. I like the Western on rosemary olive oil. It's good. Mm-hmm. But I was sitting at Brugger's, and I thought, nobody in this church, including my wife, has the same level of buy-in as me.
Yeah.
That was like a sad thought, but then I thought, of course.
Right.
Like, it just is.
Like, it is.
It is what it is. And that's why I guess I'm leading it.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of leading. And it just sat, and I just kind of sat with that. I was like, but that's every leader.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So it didn't turn into a pity party. It was a realization, made me sad, but then also made me go, that's just the calling.
Yeah. Yeah. So giving, capitalism, I did not expect this to go this direction.
Who would have?
It was interesting.
Whoever would have thought.
So I do have a topic that might be interesting for next time. We'll kind of like preview it before we close out. So I was watching Bill Maher. And he was talking about, and I haven't done research on it, so I want to kind of take a quick look at this. But if you go watch Ken Burns' documentary on Prohibition.
Okay, that's one I haven't seen. I've seen a lot of Ken Burns, but I haven't seen that.
I would like to go dig it up and look at it, watch it. So maybe it'll take a couple of weeks to see this documentary, but I think we should watch it. Okay. Because his argument was that the United States has moved into, in its consumption of alcohol, an equivalent to what was going on in Prohibition. And he's talking about the things that happened during Prohibition. And what you can conclude just from the little bit that I was hearing from him, and I really want to watch the documentary, is that we were a nation of drunks.
Oh, yeah.
And like serious drunks. Like we had times when in the town when the bells would go off twice a day and everybody would just go drink and then come back, including the kids. Like everyone's drinking, and so that's when, the wives started saying, we don't need a bunch of drunk dads coming home,
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I think there is an epidemic now, and certainly that it got pushed during the during COVID and during all the isolation that we experienced. Now you can drink at home, but if you just look culturally at all the things, anyway, where you see alcohol, I would just be interested. It doesn't have to be the whole podcast, but a little talk about alcohol, what we use it for, maybe what's happening in our culture that might need to be addressed.
Let's do it. I would like to watch that documentary.
Yes.
I don't know if I could pull it off by next.
No.
podcast.
We'll just preview it. Just like, over the next 6 months, maybe we'll talk about women in leadership again. It's gonna happen.
Remember when we made a list of topics and we didn't do a lot of those?
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, but
that's okay.
I do have a question for you about the women in leadership, not to answer like your opinion or anything, but I could just address the issues and then you could just respond to them. Like I could just look at his stuff and lay out, like, here's what I think based on what Rick said, and you can say, yeah, I agree with that, or I don't, or that way you don't have to do the research and the thinking it through, since you seem to not be able to fit that in, which is fine. You're busy. You got 3 jobs, we heard. So.
Right. That's a factor.
And the podcast is a 4th job.
And there really are certain things where I go, I know that's important, but I don't know if I can make everything my big thing. I will say though, Eric, to your credit, your double credit, and you didn't even quite mean to do this.
Wow.
Probably because we talked women in ministry and our phones were listening. I started getting, populated suggested reading on the topic.
Oh my goodness, really?
I really did. I really did.
I have not gotten any suggestions.
And because you pointed me to John Dixon's Doubter's Guide to Jesus, one of the books that auto-populated for me was his book on women speaking in church.
Oh.
And I appreciated Doubter's Guide to Jesus. We had just talked about these things.
Did you read it?
No, I ordered it though.
Oh, okay.
So I went, okay, I just thought, now that's actually one that when I talk about the things that I have no personal issue with whatsoever, it'd be having a woman teach me things. I feel like it happens all the time, and I want to explore that more biblically. And I saw the book, and
interesting. I didn't know he had a book on that.
I didn't either.
Oh wow!
So
now I've got some new exciting reading.
Yeah. So
cool.
So there you go. So I ordered this, Eric. I will read the book and reflect.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All righty.
Okay. So there you go. Podcast.
Thank you guys. If you have questions, maybe we'll answer them.
It's possible.
If you give us more complicated theological ones where we have to sit down, and
Andy will resist.
Andy will resist that. But if you want to just know what we think off the top of our head, we'll be happy to talk to you about that. And maybe we'll give you a little bit more on Anabaptists. But
yeah,
email us at faithoverbreakfast@gmail.com.
If you know anyone that wants to take on the character of Anna the Baptist,
yes,
please let us know.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've been listening to Faith Over Breakfast with Pastor Eric Siepen and Pastor Andy Littleton. Please share us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you.